Coming up, Merrin Dungey joins Illeana in just a minute.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
And now, it's the I Blame Dennis Hopper podcast, starring Illeana Douglas. Eavesdrop with Illeana as she interviews Hollywood's most prominent players about filmmaking, acting, and what really happens on the set of your favorite flicks and TV shows.
Hi, everyone. I'm Illeana Douglas. Welcome to the I Blame Dennis Hopper podcast. Hi, Dennis. Hi, Dennis. Or is he down there? I'm with Tamara Berg, my lovely co-host.
Hi, everybody.
And we were talking movies. You mentioned, I'm very curious, this Steven Soderbergh film.
Yeah, so he...
Shrouded in mystery.
Right, indeed. He quit movie making a couple of years back in 2013 because he was sick and tired of the studios having so much say in the content and also in the marketing of films, and came back with... Is it Lucky?
Logan Lucky.
Logan Lucky. I
Lucky.
get it confused. Logan Lucky. That comes out I think it comes out tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
he's self-distributing.
Yeah. Well, he's self-funding or self-sourcing the distribution, and is making his deals directly so that he doesn't have to deal with all of the studio input, and has the film presented and marketed in the way that he thinks it should be. Because one of his big bones of contention was that the studio would just come in and go, okay, this type of movie needs this kind of marketing campaign, and that it isn't a one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter sort of situation.
Yeah.
So the controversy is basically that this could completely change how movies are distributed and create a system where the studios are no longer important.
Well, I think that what's happening with artists right now is this whole idea of, places like Netflix or Amazon, if they're even going to get distribution at all.
Right.
And those of us purists, this idea that you want to see your movie on a screen and have people come to see it. It's always, so it'll be interesting to see if it's successful, and if somebody like Steven Soderbergh is successful, and other people have tried to self-distribute and not has been as successful, going to the past. Some of the, I think John Waters did like his own, way back in the 60s and 70s, people like that doing their own self-distribution. So it'll be hard, though. I mean, I remember hearing a story when I was touring with my book that they had, all these movie theaters, that there was a movie that was playing, and even though it was playing really well, the big blockbuster, they had to bump it. They had to bump this smaller movie because they had an agreement that this blockbuster was going to take over all the screens.
Right.
So I don't know if that was something that always happened before, but it'll be interesting to see. I've got obviously great respect for Steven Soderbergh and love his commentaries that he does with films. But the good news is, if the movie doesn't it sounds like it's a great setup for a cult movie, which is my next topic of discussion. Well, our great friend from Trailers from Hell, Joe Dante, also a wonderful director who's been on the podcast, invited me to do a documentary about cult films.
Oh, really?
And my sort of favorite, we were talking about what is a cult film, or people like cult films, and I jokingly said, well, it's a group of lonely, isolated people that perceive themselves as film experts, that champion a movie that it's as a masterpiece, even though there is absolutely no evidence of that. But then sometimes, and like a good example for me was, I remember when like a friend of a friend of a friend, this is back in the early 90s, had a VHS of Grey Gardens. And it was like, you could only watch it, like there was only one copy in New York City. And that was truly a cult film. And then, that it eventually, sometimes time changes people's opinion.
Of course.
Or a movie like Rocky Horror Picture Show, which I saw, and that sort of represents, it's sort of subversive, it's a subversive film, because it's like you're going to the movie theater, and I mean, one of the craziest
things happen.
Well, the idea that white kids in Hartford, Connecticut were like all singing "Sweet Transvestite," okay, but it makes things, sometimes these subversive cult movies, they make things acceptable. But there's all sorts of genres of cult films. Do you have a cult film that you like? We were talking about With Nail and I, which you just saw.
I did.
That's
for the first
definitely
time.
a cult movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And it clearly, obviously, much more a cult film in England than it is here. But I have a personal friend connection to that film, which I probably shouldn't say, but no, I can. It's potentially being made into a West End theatrical stage production very soon, in the next 12 months or so.
Much like Great Garden.
Right, exactly.
Right. So it would mean because With Nail and I is one of the few films, along with another film. There's a few films that are like cannot seem to cross over. One is called Where's Papa? It's George Segal and Ruth Gordon.
Oh, yes.
And this was like considered so good. Every time I interview Carl Reiner, I try to bring it up and he changes the subject. He's the director of it. And in the end of the movie, George Segal basically sleeps with his mother, Ruth Gordon. And they cut that ending off. It was so horrifying, apparently, to people that they cut it out. But then there's some versions that have it in. And there's another one that I love, which is called Fire Sale, directed by Alan Arkin, and Rob Reiner is in it, and Alan Arkin, and it is in such bad taste. It's about a guy who is he is a coach of a basketball team, so he goes to the ghetto and he basically, convinces this black kid who's a really good basketball player, because his wife can't have a baby, and he's like a grown man, and he adopts him, and he becomes, and it's so surreal, and you see this grown man sitting on his wife's lap and breastfeeding. Those are real, like a real cult film. Fire Sale, impossible to find or see or anything. So those ones haven't really translated, but some other ones that have, Harold and Maude.
Yeah, don't you have a quick story about Harold and Maude?
Well, Harold and Maude, as I'm going to say tomorrow, is the only time I ever literally broke up with someone because they didn't like the movie. It was back in the 80s, and this is when it was still, again, it was a big deal to see a movie because you'd have to go to the theater. So we went to a rep. I was like, oh my God, you have to see this movie. It's incredible. And he didn't like the movie, and he was shifting in his seat, and he wanted to leave. And we left, and we got into a huge fight on the 14th Street station in New York because he said the movie was really adolescent. And I was like, well, if that movie's adolescent, then so am I. Hit the road. We went. I went uptown.
I just want to say good for you.
That's
right. You were right in that argument.
I went uptown. He went downtown. And look where I am today.
That's right.
And Harold and Maude
is probably now appreciating Harold and Maude.
Oh my God, Harold and Maude now plays on TCM, completely acceptable, and has crossed over. Heartbreak Kid and A New Leaf are still, there's some problems with the distribution, but they're still wildly popular, and Elaine May is becoming, sort of popular. But I love cult films, and I asked Terry Zwigoff about Ghost World. I said, Terry, every movie you've made is a cult film.
Oh, right.
Bad Crumb, Bad Santa, Ghost World, they're all cult films. So he just said, I'm happy anybody sees them. So if cultists, if they want to call them cult films or any kind of film. So if this Soderbergh movie doesn't work out, we know there'll be a cult following of it.
Exactly. Well, I would just like to invite our listeners and our viewers to go on the Facebook page and let us know what some of their favorite cult films are.
Oh, I would love to. We're probably going to have a cult film festival. Every one is my favorite. I call my friend Peter up. I'm like, it's on again. The Legend of Lila Claire. Worst movie ever made. But yet, I need to see it.
Another one I just thought of is Plan 9. Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Yeah, that's again like a and I think that became a musical too.
Did it?
Yeah. Sometimes these things are so horrible. Remember, there was the Little Shop of Horrors, the original film with Jack Nicholson.
Yes.
That was so bad, and then eventually it became a musical, and eventually it became a movie. So it's
The Room.
And The Room is the current.
Room. Yeah.
Is the current.
Not Room.
Yeah,
The Room.
It's
The
a different
Room.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the Brie Larson one.
No.
Right.
And they've made a documentary which is supposedly really
brilliant.
Good.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one yet. All right. Well, we need to get to our show.
Yeah,
I'm so
let's do
excited.
it.
We can talk about cult films all day long. But Merrin Dungey, best known for some of her work on television. in shows like Big Little Lies, which is amazing. I don't know if people are fans of Big Little Lies, but I love that that show is brilliant. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Once Upon a Time. We love Once Upon a Time. We know Adam. We know the writer of King of Queens, Malcolm in the Middle. So much stuff to talk about. And Deep Impact. Welcome, Merrin Dungey. Thank you so much for taking time to be here.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. I'm so thrilled.
I know, we're going to have a lot to talk about. Okay, what's my favorite question? What was the first movie you saw?
Okay, well, I have to sort of... It's not the first movie that
Yeah,
I saw.
it's
Because I saw, like, you know, Escape from Witch Mountain and Benji, and you know what I'm saying? And, like,
Yes.
all of those just felt...
Watership Down, did you see that one? Were you terrified by?
I did not see, but I read the book, and
Yeah.
Jesus, but not at 5. But those movies felt, you know, much like when you're watching TV at home. It didn't affect me, but the
Right.
first, I think your question is like, what's the first movie that got you?
Yeah,
like, that
yeah.
made you,
Yes.
and it was 9 to 5.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I love that. I just got
Yeah.
chills.
Because it's the best movie
It is.
of all time. It still stands.
Yeah.
And
Oh, it's so much fun.
my parents took, I think I was 8.
Uh-huh.
Like it was super inappropriate. Like I really, really shouldn't have been seeing this
As,
movie.
as all movie going was in those days.
Yeah, right?
Oh, totally. Like
I
they didn't
saw
even,
all this like nudity. My parents they never blinked.
No, they're like, it's okay. But
Yeah.
it was New Year's Eve, and my dad thought, hey, let's go do this, and we'll get pizza.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And it was the first movie that I felt, it took my breath away. I mean, it was, you know, some of it was a little over my head, but I
Right.
was captivated. I was
Yeah.
like all about Lily Tomlin and just everything that she
Yeah.
was. You know, it was, and that was the same year that The Incredible Shrinking Woman came out as well. So
Yeah.
I like raced to see that one as well.
Plus the themes of that movie, you know, Jane Fonda produced it, which
Did she
I always
really?
forget about that. Like, yes, she produced China Syndrome, but she also produced 9 to
Wow.
5.
Oh my God.
And she's amazing. I mean, I miss movies like that that were funny comedies about women bonding. Like they don't always have to get in a car and go to Vegas and get drunk and meet a stripper.
No, and none of it was about a guy. I mean, other than the fact that it was about getting hurt, like it was not about, you know, like, and then if only I could meet like a, you know, it
Yeah.
was, why have we not remade this? I don't understand. Like that
don't know.
is a movie that is aching to be remade.
Yeah,
And, you know, it would still be amazing if you got the right people.
I think so. And the chemistry between the three of them.
And they did do a stage production of
I
it
heard,
too.
yes.
Yes, that's right. I forgot about
Yeah.
that.
So in that sense, it has come back at least a little bit.
That's
but I
true.
agree with you
Yeah.
about remaking
Right?
it.
Don't you
Yeah,
think?
For sure.
It's like,
Absolutely.
it's ripe.
Now everybody knows because I talk endlessly. I take dance class 4 days a week.
Which, by the way, I'm super impressed with. Like, that's amazing. And you go to the Edge, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. That place
want
terrifies
to see
me.
my moves?
I do want to see your moves. I would love to see your moves. I used to dance a little bit, but I as an adult, like I really would love to get back into it, but I'm you know, intimidated.
It's a safe place. As my dance teacher Bill Prudick says, "Don't judge yourself, judge others."
I love it. I'm checking
He
it out.
says so many funny things like that. That it's like, you know, it sounds corny, but I feel like when I go to dance class,
Right.
that is the only time I feel like I'm not being judged.
Oh wow.
It's like that the teachers are like, just have fun, know you're on a path, like,
Right.
you know, they're
What
like,
kind of class is it? Are they all different? Is it a
there's jazz class, there's hip hop, there's, you know,
you take a
there's
hip hop
tap.
class?
Oh, well, it's hip hop light, like
Okay.
it's called groove.
Group? I would 100% come to that class.
But it's
because
hard. I mean,
I
it's,
bet it's hard.
not easy. It's like it's the edge. But what's funny is when you hit a certain age, it's not like, you know, as my teacher says, he goes, you will not be dancing the lead in Swan Lake. So, like, just
You're not going to do coffee grinders in the next like J-Lo
yeah,
video.
like
Right.
you know, you're here to learn, you want to improve, but like, yeah, you're not going to be like. But so you grew up. So what kind of dancing? Because that would have been my fantasy, but we never had any money to like go to dance class or.
Well, we went to ballet because my mom helped teach there.
Oh,
So we
love
got
it.
classes gratis.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we did ballet. I did that since like when I was like 4 until
Mhm.
I was about 13, and then I started ice skating.
Yeah, we got to get in. And then my second favorite topic, which is ice skating.
Do you ice skate?
I grew up ice skating, and I played an ice skater in a film. I had to learn to trick skate.
Which
So
one was this?
this was called To Die For.
Oh my God, 100%. You skate at the end.
Yeah.
You skate at the end on her body.
Yes, so I had to
Spoiler alert.
learn. So I trained at one of the ice skating rinks in New York City where they have, which is surreal to go into a building on the 10th floor. There's a rink, but there were all these Olympic skaters there, and it was really exciting and fun, and it completely coincided with the Tanya Harding
Oh, wow.
thing, which to me was, I'm thrilled they're making a movie. Actually, my friend wrote that film, so I can't wait to see it, the whole TanyaArding thing.
Oh, it's gonna be amazing.
But so then how did you gravitate towards ice skating? Did you see it on TV or?
You know, I think we saw Ice Castles.
With
on,
with
the
our
greatest.
with our friend
With Robbie
Robbie
Benson.
Benson?
Robbie Benson.
Yeah.
Oh my God, please don't let this feeling end. I mean, like the greatest theme song ever.
The
Yeah.
roses.
It's everything
I
I had
forgot
about the roses.
roses.
Incredible. It's the best. And so there was that, and then there was also, my mom used to buy us these books, like A Very Young Skater, A Very Young Dancer. So we got that, but whatever. Somehow we got into
Your
that
mom
ice
sounds
skating.
awesome.
I
She's
know,
pretty
doesn't
rad.
she?
She was a teacher. She
Great.
she's just. We never went to preschool. She just taught us at home, and then like both my sister and I like went into what they called the rapid learner program. Like when it's like the and now they call it magnet or whatever. But she was great. She really made. She makes everything great. But anyway, so that's when we started skating. But then it got to a place where it was like, all right, do you want to go to college or do you want to? And I was like, I want to keep skating. My mom's like, no, because it's just a very expensive sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you skate? I mean, you can either go to the Olympics or be in the ice capades, or it's very limited.
Yeah. I mean, my daughter is now skating. One of my daughters is skating, and she doesn't want to compete per se. She would like to be in the ice, like sort of theater, which is great. They have like productions, and so we're working toward that.
And how, I know it's a movie show, but I'm obsessed with skating. Like, what was your best, like, jump or move?
Totally.
Or...
I was really good at a Salchow. Really good at a Salchow. Yeah. I couldn't, the axle was not the best.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do that eagle, like the spread eagle where I could do a good camel.
That's so weird. That's the one thing I could do.
Really?
I don't know why. That's
probably because you have a great turnout because of all your dance.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I got as far as like little waltz jumps.
Okay.
Little tiny.
Yeah. No, the waltz jump is great.
Yeah. But that's about it. That's, and then a lot of falling.
Sure. I could also shoot the duck, and when they would play.
Oh, is that the one where you're?
Where you put your foot out? Yeah.
Yes.
And they would.
I learned that one too.
It's the best. And when they would do at the public sessions, they'd play limbo, and I could shoot the duck under the thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, enough of the ice skating. I've been satisfied. I never get to talk to anyone about ice skating.
I'm at the rink once. I'm like, my daughter's skates are getting sharpened right now. Like, it's just reinvigorated this whole thing for me.
It's fun. It's fun. It's always good to have. We were talking to Anson Mount last week, and he said he always advises people that are actors to do something, and it's not cornball. Like, find something other than acting.
Totally.
A hobby that you really love, that you can invest as much energy in.
And passion.
Yeah. And I find it helps you. Anything else, like the dance definitely helps the acting.
Well, that's how I started baking.
Yes. Oh, so then my other favorite subject, baking, because I did deep research into cake decorating. I saw you on The Chew. I'm so jealous. I love that show.
They were nice.
Yeah.
Although it was the day after the election.
Oh.
So like everything
We
held.
were like,
I know, but it was weird because I flew into nobody. I mean, I didn't sleep.
Yeah.
Flying to New York from Toronto because I was in Toronto doing another show, and everyone in the airport is just like. I mean, I remember, like there was Hasidic guys outside smoking, and they don't ever pay attention to other people. Usually. Like they're very much with their own group.
Yeah.
And they were looking at me, and we were like nodding our heads, and everyone was. It was like commiserating, like, oh God.
Yeah.
So, but that was it.
And
So it was a weird day to go like, hey, let's talk about baking.
Right.
We were all like, like the world.
Isn't
just
it interesting that collectively that we knew, because if this were a movie, you'd say, well, that was foreshadowing, and then it didn't happen. It's like, no, it totally happened.
It
that
happened.
horrible depression that we had that day. Actually, I had a book reading with Matt.
That day?
Yeah.
That night.
That night.
The night of the day after.
Which I was invited to, but I couldn't go.
Yeah.
And
it was so surreal
it
being
was
at that book reading
it was
because everybody was sort of stunned in the audience watching.
And we ended up it was kind of weird. I've never done anything like this in my life. I was like, I need to drink. Like, I'm so depressed.
Right.
I don't, this is, and we had, it was an amazing release because we were all laughing and everything.
Sure.
But I think that everybody felt just really scared and the foreshadowing.
Rightly so.
I know.
It was actually, I have to say, it was great to be in New York because you were kind of at the epicenter of, I was staying right near Trump Tower, and, it felt like I was not doing something, but I was among people.
Right.
I mean, I remember the makeup artist and the hair person came in, to get me ready for the shoe and for Good Morning America, and the waiter came upstairs with coffee, and his name was Barack. It was just like, it was so weird. He wasn't a black guy. He was, I don't know what his nationality was, but his name was Barack. We all held hands and like prayed for a minute. Like it brought strangers together. That's what everyone was saying. It felt like what happened after 9/11.
Yeah, it did. Oh, I hope it's going to happen together. That's why we started the show with a hug. It's like, I just need to be hugged every day. So we were talking about cakes and cake. So you got into baking? And baking specifically cake decorating? Was that your specialty?
Well, I wanted. It was a time after I only have 2 kids, and it was right after my second daughter. So things obviously slow down when you're, in the business, and we were coming out of that SAG strike, and I felt I needed something creatively to control. I remember there was a year that I had 30 pilot auditions, nothing,
wow.
like crickets, and it just, having kids, it started doing it for kids because it was like, well, I'm not, going to go buy you something that sprinkles. I'll make it. Yeah. Oh, well,
right.
What about this? My mom gets these Martha Stewart magazines. I'm like, oh, I could do that. So it was more about like, I'd look at a picture and say, can I do this?
Yeah.
And the challenge was, and I remember my mom, she got it was a fish. It was this one that was a cake. It was like, and it was sort of 3D, like the fin was on top of it and the eye was like, so you had to cut other bits of cake to like layer it onto the thing. And my mom's like, there's no way. Like, you can't. And I said, really? Watch me. And I did it. And it was beautiful. It was my first one. And it just felt really good. So I just kept going from there.
Have you ever been able to translate any of that into a movie or show? Any of those hobbies?
I don't want to, look, if I had to bake or do something in
yeah.
In a thing, I'm sure it's like I can do it. But for me, because it's one of those things that it's for fun and for free. And there came a point where some people, wanted me to do cakes for, their kids' parties. And I was like, sure, I could use a couple extra bucks or whatever. And then it became a problem because now you're working for somebody, and so it's not as fun. It's stressful, So I finally gave that
Marin,
up.
this cake is not at all what I want.
Yeah, or they just had it was less about what they didn't want. It was more that they would, can you now do, and now it's gonna be this many people. And now it's, and you're like, I'm spending all this time. And it was stressing me out. It wasn't a hobby anymore. It wasn't fun. So.
Right. That's I know certain people I know have actually. Did you know that in California, at least, I don't know about other states, you can because I've had friends do this. You free apprentice in a bakery. And
really?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Why do we not know this?
I never. The subject never came up, but I'm telling you,
free apprentice.
It's like an underground thing.
That's incredible.
Yep, I know. My neighbor apprenticed my God, I'm blanking, but the famous hotel that's downtown where they have all the premieres.
Biltmore, no, downtown.
Standard?
One of those ones, and the other guy does cake famous, but various bakeries in town. Yes, will let you and they put you on duty like you're, decorating. You're doing
filling the tubes, probably
exactly
basic stuff.
But it's you learn a lot, and sometimes they'll let you do a cake and this and that. And I've known 1 or 2 people have done that. So anyway, that's another kind of thing.
Good to know.
I made my first unicorn frosting over the last weekend. 3 colors in a bag, and they mix.
Oh, sure.
Wow.
It's quite fantastic, I do say so
And
myself.
did you do it on the unicorn?
I have to say, the coup de grace of my baking was a 3D BB-8 for my kid.
Uh-huh.
And it was rainbow cake on the inside.
Oh my God.
And then like it's a full ball, like, and then with an antenna and then candy all around to decorate, and then on sand. So he's like, in Dracu.
Wow, that sounds amazing. I'll have to look for the pictures. So back to acting.
Okay.
What was your your first start? Did you always want to be? So you were doing the dancing and the ice skating, and then did you sort of gravitate towards make a decision you wanted to be an actor, or did it sort of fall into place?
Well, I always loved the performance part of anything. I was doing piano, and like I was never good at the theory of it, but I was always great at like when we had a show, it was like, oh, look out, so I always loved performing. I didn't really ever think that was a job I could have. And I remember there was one time when I was in 5th grade, my drama teacher in class, they gave out parts for, it was just like a little thing in class, and it was like a mishmash of Snow White. And I got to be the narrator because it had the most words, and I was, adept at doing that. But the narrator was a maid. And I remember coming home because I was so excited, and I got to do this thing, and I tell my dad, and he's like, so essentially I'm telling him I played the maid.
Yeah.
Well, I got a very big conversation about how this is why you shouldn't ever be an actor, because you're only going to play bad guys and maids, and it's always going to be this. Because at the time, in the 70s, there wasn't a lot of opportunity for, great opportunity. I mean, there was and there wasn't, So that is that kind of turned me off from acting, because I thought everyone was going to, put me in a pigeonhole me. So my sister and I were like, well, we'll do something on the other side of the, we'll go to UCLA and become, writers or directors or camera people. But I couldn't help myself, and I started auditioning for stuff in junior high, and then I got cast on a teen talk show called Scratch in high school, and then that led to like a commercial, and then that led to auditioning for some LA agents, and I had memorized one of Whoopi Goldberg's monologues in a night, and like did it flawlessly. Like they were like, "What's happening? How long have you been working on this?" I'm like, "Since last night." And like, call us when you get to town. So I happened to be going to town the next, and it was one of those things where I always wanted to do it. It just came easy. Like I got on the dorm floor and met all the theater people, of course, and so then I started auditioning, and I was getting cast. I was an English major, but they, it was just. I was the youngest person at UCLA to win their acting awards. Like I got in as a freshman. You weren't. It was supposed to be for the seniors and the graduate students. I got in as a freshman, and then I won it as a sophomore. So, and then I got an agent. So it was just one of those things where it snowballed, and it helped. Like when I won, like Denzel Washington happened to be like the guest host, and he gave me my award, and it was really amazing. And my parents were there. And
well, now you're talking my language. Like so, that would be. Oh, people always ask me, like, why'd you want to be an actor? I was like, the only way to be movie stars is you got to be near them. So
I know, but they're so disappointing sometimes.
Oh,
Don't you find that?
Sorry, when they're disappointing, then it's like I always go, this will be a funny anecdote.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So I turn it into this will be a funny story. Like if they yell at me, or I've had plenty of. I must have a personality that people want to yell out, because I've been yelled at a lot. But
Are you kidding?
Yeah, people yell at me a lot. I don't know why. It's just like a trigger.
Oh my God.
I don't know if you have certain. Do you have? I'm curious. Like for like a weird thing for me, I always get cast in movies from 1958 to 65. That's been my like thing. Or I was in a cycle of like, do I look like a real estate agent? Like, why am I always the evil real estate agent? Have you had
a cop?
You're as a cop.
I'm a cop.
That's so funny, because you walking in and your dress, I would never.
Yeah, at all. I know I'm in a Stevie Nicks mode today, but like, I do cop a lot, all the time. And my daughter always says, "Oh, you're wearing your business lady outfit." Like, I always go in for professional business lady.
So when you're having some success, did Denzel give you any words of wisdom, by the way?
Well,
he seems like intimidating. I've never met him.
He was. It was very
scary.
Brief. This is very brief.
Remember the Oscars when
yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix is like, you meant so much to me, and I was like, he looks like he hates him. Like, what's going on? And then afterwards, it was projected that like, no, because he was so moved. I was like, nah, I don't know about that. It doesn't seem.
He's
Scary.
I don't know him at
Intense.
all, but yes, he does seem
He did
like he would be-
television, for God's sakes. When did he get so intense?
I know.
He was on St. Elsewhere.
He was.
I love, which was one of my favorite shows.
That was a good show.
Growing up. But so no words of wisdom.
No, he did. He did. I was standing there and I didn't know what to say, and I said, I would like to. I want to thank. And then he whispered in my ear. He goes, the Academy, and I said, the Academy, and it was just like,
Yeah.
you know.
So it gave you a good joke.
It was a nice
joke.
moment. It was a nice moment.
So when you were, did you imagine a kind of a career you wanted, like movies, TV, or kind of actor that you want? Like I always admired Deborah Winger. Like that was for me growing up.
Yeah.
I just, she also was in a lot of movies, and that I was like, oh, okay, I think I could do that. Like,
Totally.
did you ever pick someone out that you had that kind of vibe, funny, dramatic?
Well, not yes and no. I mean, it was hard, and I remember like I was in an acting class where it was all about finding your casting. Like that was his big thing, was what's your casting and who could you, like they would give you all the Deborah Winger parts, and 'cause
Right.
there's certain things that you your essence has that you could easily
Right.
have played those parts. It was always hard because it's kind of going back to what I was saying about like growing up in the 70s and 80s and watching people. There isn't anybody
Right, that you could.
Yeah, like if it were me now, I'd be like, I would like to be the Kerry Washington.
Right,
There's
right.
other people to look to.
Yeah.
Angela Bassett was still trying to make it happen.
Right. Right.
There wasn't anybody to look to.
Right.
And I remember.
Except in musicals.
Well, sure, but
a little bit, but-
but I wasn't a singer, and I wasn't. That was
Right.
one of the things that I wanted to do was to sing and to take like the
Yeah.
jazz classes, and we didn't have the money to do it, so
Right.
my mom didn't let me do that. But I remember I'm really good friends with Leslie Ann Warren, and she and I, because she came up obviously in the studio system and like movies, and so for me it was always TV because.
Right.
I could see a place for me. I could see that there was always room. And it's funny because now TV's the place to be, and there's like so
Right.
much opportunity, and there's so many places. So I've always been like kind of as much as I would love to do movies, and I love Melissa McCarthy, and there's people I love.
Yeah.
It's those comedians, the Melissa McCarthys, the Amy Poehlers, the Tina Fey, like that resonates
Right.
with me. And back in the day, it was Whoopi Goldberg. But I think TV is the best place for me. Honestly.
Yeah, for women. Traditionally, there's always been, going back to Lucy and stuff. There's always been great opportunities for her. And do you remember like what your first job was? Like what your first?
The first job that I got was a movie called How to Make an American Quilt. I had one line. I got cut.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Did you practice all day for your one line?
I did.
Yeah, of course.
I was so excited. And then like somebody wasn't there, so they gave me like a really big trailer. Like I should have had like those little weird cubbies.
Yeah.
And they let me have a big trailer, and I took all these pictures of me in the shower and me there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the line got cut.
Ugh.
Which is horrible.
Killer.
Yeah, and most of my stuff in Deep Impact is gone. I mean, I'm still listed, so I get like residuals and stuff like that.
I know, I love that. I've been there. I had a 1 year, which I wrote about in my book. I was cut from every film I was in. I worked with Woody Allen, Robert Redford, and Spike Lee. Back to back to back, was cut from every single. There is no except that I'm in the trailer. Like I would just be like, they'd be like, I saw you in the Spike Lee movie. I was like, yeah, and I would just like, but I was in the trailers. I made the trailer,
Right.
But that was it. But yeah, the rest of them.
That is.
Gets brutal. It's hard. It's hard.
Wow. I mean, just to hear that though, it's good to share war stories.
Yeah.
Because it helps bolster.
The Woody Allen one, they didn't tell me, and I went to the premiere, and that's how I found out I was not in the movie. I was there laughing about it. I was like, wow, I wish somebody, at least Redford, I got the letter. I got the letter, the sad news in the letter.
Yeah, but that's kind. I
Yeah,
mean,
it
I
was
went to the
nice.
premiere of How to Make an American Quilt, and they told me there.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's just mean.
I know. I guess they're embarrassed, or they're not even thinking about it.
Well, I mean, for me, it was one line, and I'm sure you had more than one line. So, like,
Yeah.
that's a big deal to You
Yeah.
know, like that's
The Spike Lee one bothered me because it was really everyone in the universe at that time. You know, there's like a feeding frenzy around certain movies or shows. You know,
Right.
and there was a little bit of a feeding frenzy for people to be in that film, and it took multiple auditions to get in the film. So,
what was the film?
Jungle Fever.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, I remember all that. Yeah.
And like, so me, Debbie Mazar, Annabelle Skewer got in, but Debbie Mazar and I were from Goodfellas, and we got in the movie, and we were like, you know, so we thought we were so hot until we got our asses cut from the movie.
I know, but you have the legends of so many other movies.
Yes,
in
that's
your...
right. And it was funny. Not long ago, I ran into Ernest Dickerson, who's since become a director, and he was the DP. And I was like, I wrote about you in my book because I was like, Spike Lee never laughed, but he'd like. I go, you always laughed. He kept saying, like, because we had to do it all improv, and I was like, thank God for you, because Spike would be like, I don't know, you know, but Ernest was like, he kept saying, he goes, it's funny. He goes, Spike, come on, it's funny. Because I had to make up stuff of, you know.
Totally. And you and Debbie Mazar, are you kidding me? Like, that'd be amazing.
We were like all night long, and we were, you know, and things were going wrong technically, but it was a fun experience. It's all a journey. One day.
Everything about it is appealing. I mean, like.
And you were also, because we always have to talk, a Seinfeld alum.
Oh, yes.
I was on Seinfeld.
Right.
I was on part of the last 10 shows. I was probably more scared to do that than anything I've ever done.
Really?
Just because it was
the pressure.
It was like playing with the Yankees, and I was sitting,
Right.
and I've never had nerves in my life, but I was sitting in the diner.
Totally.
With them all, and I was like, I don't know, I can't, I'm not funny, I can't do that. And I was really scared. Like, I was like, whoa, this is what people talk about.
Yeah.
Like, did you have any of that experience of being scared?
No, because I was still really young at the time, and I was in one of the last 5 episodes, because it was, so the frenzy had already started, and it was like, I remember back when, oh God, who's the host of Survivor? What's his name?
Jeff Probst.
Jeff Probst was on Entertainment Tonight. I did like a little, because I had taken pictures with every one of the cast, and so I got to go on Entertainment, whatever. It was just like, what was it like being a part of the, you know, and I just had a couple of lines or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just thought they were great. It was so exciting, and Jason Alexander kept doing his Exorcist imitation, because he's like, every time I hear your name, I'm like, Merrin, and I'm like, and then Julia had thrown her back out, so I had like lie on the floor and take my picture with her. And I remember that what's his name, Kramer, wasn't very nice, and now maybe we know why. But Jerry was great. Like, he just would laugh at everything anybody did. Like, he was so supportive of everybody's thing, which was great.
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool.
They all were. They were amazing.
Yeah.
And I was so like, I just wanted to be good.
Yeah.
For them.
Sure.
Because I was such a fan. You know, I was such a fan of yours. And then, so now you're doing, and then how did you get cast on King of Queens?
I was driving for the Zone delivery when everyone was on the Zone, and I got an audition, and I dropped off my Zone food at Sony with some people, and I ran into the David Lean building and said, I have an audition. Does anybody? I'm on the clock. Does anybody care if I run in and go first? And they're like, no, that's fine, and I did, and I got the part.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And what do you think you did? Because you mentioned Sony. That's my unlucky. I hate auditioning at Sony. It's my unlucky.
I know, but you can't put a thing on the thing.
I put everything.
You can't put a thing on the thing.
I know, it's horrible. I know.
I'm not crazy I hate Sony just because there should be Sherpas and snacks along the way. Like, it's the worst.
By the time you get in, I'm like, I hate myself. I have nothing to give anyone, and I can't wait till I'm home eating ice cream. No, it's terrible.
It's a bad lot.
One time I got lost on the lot, ran into Jane Lynch. It was raining. I was like, I just want to go home. I was like, by the time I went in, I was like, just cast Jane Lynch. I'm done. I hate it.
I'm not interested. I know I went over there last year during that there was that one Friday, and it was a massive rainstorm.
It's always Friday.
It's always Friday. And they have to see you today, and it's got to happen. And I literally, like, my umbrella blew inside out, and I'm like, you know, you're like tick, tick, tick in your heels in the wet, and you're like, this is not, what is it really worth? Of course I didn't get it, and of course it didn't have to happen at that moment.
But on that day when you went in,
that was the magic.
Did you feel like you were in the zone in some way, or was it just any audition?
I
want to hear your techniques because I'm fascinated.
Well,
by
I honestly think
good auditioning.
I think that what was great about that day was that I was working for the Zone, and then I had to go and do my personal. I had 3 jobs. I was like literally the person with all the jobs. So I went and worked for the Zone and dropped off the delivery, did my audition, left, and then had to go work for. I was a personal assistant to the president of Warner Brothers, and I did all that, and then I had to go work. I was working on a one-woman show called Black Like Who, and I had to go do that in the afternoon, and then I had to go. Wow. My bar job.
That's a great life. It sounds like.
But I was busy.
Yeah.
So, I found like now that I have kids, my auditions are better because I don't have time to think about it. Like I gotta go. Like we gotta go. I have an app called Rehearsal. I rehearse it. Right. I got 20 minutes to give this. You know, and when I was younger and didn't have, I think that's how I got that. It was like I was good. I was busy. I was also tall. Victor is really, really tall. The guy who plays my husband or played my husband. That helped, but you when you're not thinking about it, when you're not like judging it and worrying about it, and you just have to like. I used to spend hours like when I'd have a network audition, I would just like luxuriate in the stress and then run it and then like run it and I mean hours and hours. And now I'll still spend hours and hours if it's something. I remember I was reading for a Quentin Tarantino movie, and I would just lock myself in a room and I just was like, because I don't want to blow this. I want to be great. Right. And I was still great. I didn't get it, but more than anything, I just like to walk out of that room knowing I was great, because it's so out of my control. There's so many other decisions. There's so many other things happening. I want to be great. So then later on, you'll go, oh, wait, remember, blah, blah, blah. And that happens all the time, where they go, it wasn't this, but it was.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a pressure, and the more they know you, the more there is the pressure, like, I lock myself in, and I try to do a good job. So, and did you enjoy working with Jerry Stiller? He just seems so funny.
He's beautiful. He's so sweet. He's just a good guy.
I mean, he's like
funny.
Yeah.
And Anne was on the show too. I mean, it was great to be around them. It's amazing.
And so you're working with, that's one of my favorite things, like to do a sitcom and you're working with a live audience. First
multi-camera sitcom is like, that's my dream.
Greatest.
Like that is really what.
That's the life.
That's my life. That's really.
That's what I want. When I was in acting school, that's what I would have loved.
Yeah.
To be on Friends or something. I don't have to write a book and make all these complicated things. But so working on that and we work in front of a live audience. And did you really just hone your comedy skills?
I don't know. Honestly, I think I honed my comedy skills watching those shows. Like I would watch things that Matt Perry did as Chandler over and over and over and over and over and over and over.
Right.
And then when I would learn from Kevin, like Kevin James. He could sell a line. He could sell a word. Yeah. Just the way he would turn a word was. Right. It's back to the whole Jackie Gleason. Yeah. And I remember when I was 5, I would come home from kindergarten and I'd have my lunch and then I'd have to go back to school for first grade reading, and I would watch Andy Griffith's show and the Dick Van Dyke while I had my lunch. Oh. And just like Dick Van Dyke. I mean,
I love it.
So I think it's like all those things, like you learn the pattern from it. You learn what to do. You pick up on it. So.
Yeah. It's funny how you know what's good even if you're a kid, and like you said, watching 9 to 5, even the stuff that goes over your head.
Totally.
You sort of. So I want to hear about the working at 3. I was reading you worked at 3 shows simultaneously.
I've done that twice now.
Oh my God! Like, how is that even possible? It's not like it's New York. Wait, I mean, you have to get in your car.
It depends
on
the
physically possible.
Well, sometimes it's like that you're recurring, but the shows are done. Like there was a point where I was on Once Upon a Time, and I was on Chasing Life, and I was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I guess, at the same time. But none of those things, like one was in Vancouver. So it's like once we did all those, I was already home, and then I got Brooklyn. So it's like those things, they were running concurrently, so it looked like I was doing all this stuff, but it all shot out of sequence. Right. And then. Years ago, when I was on King of Queens, I was also on Malcolm in the Middle and this other show that the name escapes me right now. It was a 90210 spin-off.
Melrose Place?
No. It was like it was after 90210 had aired, but then they like kind of put it on to make fun of it. And it was with Joey Fisher.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it was weird.
When did Alias get in the mix?
So I was doing King of Queens, and they actually asked me to be a series regular. And so I had the weekend to think about it, and we talked about it with my people, and I said, I love the show, and I'm loved to be a part of it, and I'm still married to him, So even if I say no, like they'll still use me.
Right.
But this is like my chance to like get something that's like, I'm never going to be anything but the wife on that show. Like
Right.
There was episodes where I'd come in and go, what's with her? Da da da. I mean, like, just like, and that was it. So
Right.
there was never going to be enough satisfying work.
Yeah.
So I passed on being a regular, and I was grateful that they still like had me around. And then that was the year I got Alias.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm.
That takes a lot of fortitude. I don't think I'd be too scared. I'd be like.
But I mean, I talked to my agents, I talked to my manager, and I talked to my sister, because it's like the people that when it comes to a business decision.
Yeah.
Like every time I had a network thing, and they go, okay, they're going to give you this much money, and it's this.
Right.
And I would always go to my sister and talk to her and go, what do you think? She was sort of my good sounding board of things. And
well, we're going to get to your sister because that's also fascinating too. And without being a spoiler, what was your sister doing before she became president of ABC? Was she in the executive TV?
She was in movies.
Oh, so she's in, so that's a great sounding board then.
Yes, she started at she started off at honestly Steven Seagal's production company. And then
must have been a learning.
Steep learning curve. And then she moved over to Warner Brothers and was a studio executive there. And I don't remember exactly her job title. So she kind of moved along the ranks there. And then I think she wasn't moving as quickly as she wanted to, so then she left it for a minute to go become a producer, and then that was when everyone sort of like lost their shingles, people spun off to do that, and then it didn't really work out. And another friend of hers was like, why are you not in TV? And I had said that, and because we both do this with each other, we go to each other with what do you think? And I'm like, it's our lives. Like my mom would buy us each, when we were kids, we would each get our own fall preview TV guide, so we could mark it up and talk about the shows we wanted to watch and hang up things on the wall.
I love that.
Yeah, we loved TV, and so it was a natural move for her.
Do you ever see yourself move? Eventually, is that something you would ever think about being an exec? I think actresses would make great executives.
It would be a good move. It would be an interesting move. It's a harder move. I don't know, like that they're interested in having our. I mean, I think maybe we could move into casting per se. They could maybe see that. Yeah. I'd love to at some point do something with my sister someday, like have our own thing.
Yeah.
Something real, because I'm constantly going, what about this? It's like, I can pitch you shows all the time now. And she's like, oh,
I love that idea.
What about this? And she's like, oh my God, no.
Well, and since we're on the subject, your sister is Channing Dungey, and this was like a big sort of, kind of, wasn't it? It's like a big upset when the other guy, I remember reading it, and they pushed out the man, they put in a woman. This is like part of the big changes. I do this show for Turner Classic Movies called Trailblazing Women, which started in 2013. And from 2013 to now, there have been these really interesting, significant changes. And so your sister, becoming a president of ABC is one of those significant changes. And it really feels this time like it's not going to be temporary. It doesn't feel like, all right, let's get those women off my back now.
No,
it feels different this time.
Yeah.
So it's exciting.
It was more, I mean, she'd been kind of groomed for this position for a long time.
Which seems unusual for a woman.
Sure, but particularly for an African American woman, that's the news, because Jamie Tarsis. I mean, other women have done it,
right?
But no black woman has ever, or black person has ever run a major network. So it was funny because when it happened, I of course was like during pilot season, and the fact that it happened during pilot season too is like that never happens. And I remember she called me and she's like, I just want to tell you before it comes out in Deadline. And I said, what? She said, they're making me president. And I just laughed for 20 minutes. Like, what? It's crazy. And I'm like, I gotta go to my Lethal Weapon audition. But what was great was during the course of the day, it was the big shakeup, Holly out, and Channing Dungey in, and then over the course of the day, it was like, wait a minute, it's a black woman's running. It became that became the news, and it was really, I couldn't stop crying. Like once I got the laughs, I just was like, my sister just made history. Like she just made history. It was insane.
Yeah,
it was really, really cool.
Well, and then what's been so great about it, obviously, is to see like ABC doing really well, and
Sure.
so that's, I don't know, it just feels different this time. It just with women in executive positions, because it's not just elevating a woman to being president. It's you support all the way down the line, and if they have ideas for shows, really getting behind those ideas and making sure that they're successful and.
Well, but also, with the success of Shonda Rhimes and so many other females out there, it's Genji Cohen, there's, I kind of feel like that it's an easier move to make. It's not like such a big, I know that it's still hard to get like, female directors, like that's still kind of lacking, and getting women in the writer's room is still, troublesome, but having these executives and having these women helming shows is my friend Courtney Agbo, who runs Power, like that's a huge, deal. Like,
right.
So, and to have it be so successful, all these women who are doing it and doing it well is the thing. I think that's what's different, is that the women have been doing it, but now they're doing it and they're doing it well.
So if I'm your sister, what would be a show that you would be? Because it's probably, what would be a show that you want to see?
What did I talked to her one about, like a vigilante kind of thing, about women going out, because just I love the idea of like women taking their power back and going,
right.
And she's like, the problem is that there's no new ideas. So she was saying, well, we did something that was similar with this, and it had kind of like that.
Right.
You'd have to. The problem is I have ideas. I'm not a writer,
Right.
So getting together with somebody to shape the idea, that's really the key. And then I get like tired. I'm just like, there just comes a point at which you lose your wherewithal to like, go.
I like angry vigilantes.
Yeah, I mean, I just think I like. There's just all these things that are happening to women with sexual harassment. I mean, I don't know if you read about this Taylor Swift thing that she.
I did.
Wow.
It sounds like it completely 150% happened. There's not a doubt in my mind.
She's like, you can ask me a million times, and I will never give you a different story. I know. And just to see if that guy gets, it's just, I love the idea of female vigilantes just taking care of business and handling, fixers.
Yeah, and I feel like that if you said things, that there's it does feel as if there is a genuine change on the one hand of things like that, of sexual harassment, but then underneath, people who don't or are not in a position of power, like Taylor Swift, I still feel like it happens all the time. And
all the time. And forget about that. Like, how about these rape cases where, like, the Stanford guy, where he just, he was such an innocent boy, and
I know that was really, that was troubling. So I still feel like some of the same sort of stereotypes, are occurring. For me, my personal thing, is I love history, and I love American history, and so I wish that the networks would handle more shows about history. I don't know, because women were doing such great things, and I feel like whenever they do history, it gets stuffy. It doesn't.
It can.
It gets a little bit like that movie Suffragette, which I thought was such a great idea, but when you see it in a movie, it's like, well, they weren't dull, like they weren't. A very interesting story, just off topic, was in the 1800s, women went to Massachusetts to work in the mills. They needed women to work in the mills. And of course, consequently, what happened was like, freedom! They just were like, oh no, I'm not going home. No way. Like they were like, like everything out here, they were drinking and having sex. And then it was like, it was the same thing. Like then they started a strike. They did the first strike in America was actually started by women.
Oh my God.
Of course. So I feel like, again, there's a way to make history fun and palatable. Like you take a little bit of the Game of Thrones mentality into the women's movement, and I that's sort of my thing as a creator. I wish that balance were, when it's a woman's story, like why is it sort of humorless?
Right. I think that
that's my little critique.
I remember they had those shows, if these walls could talk, and there was like 1, 2, 3 or whatever, and I just maybe bite-sizing the story and telling similar stories in different eras is a way that you could do it. That might be a way to sort of like, I don't know, it's just a thought.
Yeah, but that's always, when you're learning history. So we're friends, of course, with the people who, Once Upon a Time, and the that's such a wonderful show. And how did that come about? Being part of that the dynasty, the Disney,
the dynasty, the Disney legends.
Yeah.
It was a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
It was a phone call. My manager called and said they want you for this, and they're going to call you and ask you. And I was floored.
Yeah.
And that all stemmed from, honestly, from Alias, because they liked my work on Alias.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more, it's just those, you don't know what those seeds are. It's like,
Right.
had I not made that decision back then,
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
it's crazy. Yeah, that's how that happened. And I was overwhelmed and couldn't tell anybody. And it was one of those things that was just a big secret. And I just all of a sudden had to pack up and move to Vancouver for a few months. But wow, that's a really awesome experience.
Yes. Tell the story, because I love how you had to learn how to act with your tentacles and keep your hands out of the.
It's
That's
true.
such an interesting. I couldn't act without my hands.
Well, and when it's funny because there's this new movie, Descendants 2, with the kids, and there's a young Ursula's daughter or whatever, and I was watching her fight, and she's using her hands. She's using her hands. Because it's just your instinct to put your dukes up, and you have to swing your hips. You have to. It's all like vagina work. Because you're flinging your tentacles. But so the first episode, it's pretty awkward, but then it all came.
You got into the groove.
Yes. If I was taking dance class, I might have been more familiar with my body.
Yeah, with your core.
Exactly.
I go through it every week. And working with a green screen, because again, I find that's like so challenging.
It's really, not only is it green screen, you're in a corset.
Yeah.
You gotta keep your hands down. You have a 10-pound situation happening on your head with all this extra hair and this weighty crown. And it's just, and ours was a blue screen because I was wearing green, or I would have just disappeared. But I found solace. First of all, I had worked with 3 amazing women, Kristian and three. I was the third. But the 3 of us had a great time. Victoria Smurfett and Kristen Bauer. We had an amazing time. And then also the other actors on that show are so professional. Like, they're so used to, freeze. And then, you're pretending you're poofing from one place to the next. And there was a point at which I was standing there. It was me, Ernie Hudson, who played my dad, and he's in like this crazy, like, Neptune, was it like Poseidon outfit? And Jennifer Morrison's got her hands up, she shoots flames from her hands, and Ginny Goodwin is like, I'm choking her with my tentacle. And Captain, everybody's there. And we all stopped, like, when they're like, okay, cut, and we're like, Jennifer Goodwin just goes, acting is embarrassing. It's a little embarrassing.
Yeah.
Because you're just doing these things that are just ridiculous. But the best thing about that show is you get to play. You know, when you're on sets and it's like, okay, let's do that again, and you got to eat the spaghetti, and then you have to walk over here and put the plate down, and it's just like regular people stuff. This is not regular people stuff. You are like, pretend looking over the edge of something, and then the fans come on, and they're like, dragon, and you have to look up in the air, and it's just things that you don't ever get to. It's like playing with 4-year-olds, like there's dragons and there's, magic, and it's amazing.
And plus that makes you part of the Comic-Con universe.
Oh yeah, a little bit. I did a little bit of that, but not a ton. I would have had to do a lot more, and it was nice to have that cachet, but you really have to have more to really,
What was the thing? Did the fans? Do you do? Well, I know you're on social media, but the fan, you must have like rabid fans of.
I have rabid Once Upon a Time fans. They're really lovely and amazing. But yes, I do. That was the thing that just took it over the top. And I remember I went to England for Christmas because my husband's British, while I was shooting, in between, like on our Christmas break. And I got online on Twitter to just like, see what was happening, and then just like, well, ask me any question. Well, ask me any questions, Once Upon a Time fans. My Twitter exploded. It was crazy.
Yeah.
You couldn't keep up. It's just insane. And I am super grateful because they are very loyal and passionate fans. But
yeah, it's interesting. The fans they've got a world of their own with some of the fantasy.
Oh yeah, they think that Victoria and I have a relationship. There's a whole. They call us Sea Devil because she's Deville, Cruella Deville. But we had such great chemistry that it's nice to know that there's something that came from that. And she and I are still really, really, really good friends. And they love to make us T-shirts and write fan fiction. And there's been a couple of odd cartoons that have sent me interesting things that I'm doing with my tentacles. So there's
your tentacles.
Yeah.
And then I love the show that that you just did, the Big Little Lies. Oh, what an amazing show! My mom and I would talk about.
Oh God,
she saw it before I. Have you seen it yet? I was like, no, I saw. I'm stuck on the first two. Don't worry. But yeah, we loved Mom and Daughter. That was a fun show to watch. Mom and daughter show. But did you like being on the show? It was so great. Is it coming back or was that it?
It's
a book.
I just ran into Nicole, as you do. Yeah. Just on the sidewalks of Los Angeles, Ventura Boulevard. No, I did bump into Nicole Kidman, and she said that there is talk of a possibility. They're talking.
Right.
So it was nice to hear from her because I'd heard rumors, and then I heard Jean-Marc wasn't interested in doing it, but I don't. Who's to say? The book, I would love to enter that world again. I don't know that.
Yeah.
But I'm also happy to leave it. Let Sleeping Dogs Lie, because it was a beautifully done piece, and I was so thrilled to be a part of it. So, and to work with Jean-Marc was just the first time I really, I haven't had a chance to do a lot of movies. I did Chips last year, and I've done a couple things, but worked with Ron Howard on something, but this was, you're working with the movie director, and this is how it is, and it's just, he gave me all the business with the lighter, and it's the music of the piece, and this character, she always has a cigarette, and she's this is part of her thing, she just quit, and there was a whole history going on with the character, and we had all this other stuff too that we just, there was no time for,
right.
That was interesting for me because you don't get that in TV. TV's,
right.
Unless you're really developing a character and you're working on a series for a long time, you don't necessarily get all of those pieces of the puzzle. So it was really a lot of fun for me to get that.
Yeah. Is that probably like the most satisfying thing you've done, or have there been other? Just as an actor.
Well, no. Look, there were things about that process that were very, very satisfying. My character didn't get to do a tremendous amount of things, so that is sort of, that is frustrating. I would say that my most satisfying thing that I've ever done was probably Alias, just because JJ took the character, like one day he just came up to me and he said, "Do you know how to fight?" And I said, "No." He said, "Learn," and walked away. And so I had to train for a year for that fight, and learn different accents. Like, is she going to be Russian? Is she going to be, who is this? And then to play two different characters. There was, and I wish that we could have done more with it. Because I just was so hungry to do something.
Right.
So that to me was delicious. You get all these appetizers all the time. You get appetizers. Some of them are delicious. Some of them are sparse. This was the first time I got a steak. I got a real good steak, and it was nice and meaty and delicious.
Do you see your next goal as like maybe starring in a show or developing a show? Would that be like, what's your trajectory?
Yes, that for me would be lovely to really honestly get that sitcom, sitcom together. I know that it's so funny because Leslie, she didn't make fun of me from it, but I remember having these conversations, and to her, she's always been such a movie person, and so at the time when we had this conversation, it was maybe 5-7 years ago, but for me, that's what I love. I really, really do love live. I did stand up for a minute there, and I really loved that. I love to perform in front of a live studio audience, and I just did a pilot this year that didn't get picked up, but I got to finally work with James Burrows, which was, just so truly satisfying. And have you worked with him? Did you?
I have.
Yeah.
On an ill-fated. Which I'll talk about off mic. My next book. These are all the uplifting stories. Did you ever want to write a book?
No.
Everybody should write a book. You should, even if you don't publish it.
I know you said that to Leslie. You did say that to Leslie.
I truly believe it. Things that you write, you're going to be shocked. You're going to be like, I can't believe I'm remembering this.
Wow.
Like would write things like, I'm going to write about the drive-in, and it just turned into something like I learned so much, and I feel like when I get older and I do forget things, at least I wrote it in a book, but I wrote everything really positive, and the next book that I'm working on, all the stories are going to be not negative, but like all the horror stories, but funny.
It's
funny horror
important
stories.
to have those. I mean,
And yes, mine was like, I did not have a grade. He was amazing. The show didn't turn out to be great.
Yeah, no, just to work with James Rose was
he's a legend.
It was okay, box ticked. Like
Yeah.
So I'm disappointed that didn't go because I really thought it had a beautiful message and it was funny show called Brothered Up. But
it's tougher. It seems like tougher to get on the air these days.
Oh yeah. Well, it was. The thing is with streaming,
right?
You know, it's harder for networks to get eyes. You know, somebody was complaining. Somebody on Facebook was like moaning about how, why are they bringing back Will and Grace and Roseanne? And I said, honestly, I think it's because they need comfort food. They need something familiar, something that is a proven success, that people are interested in seeing, to bring the eyes back, so then they can. And then following up, it was our new, so then they can launch new stuff.
Yes.
And then there was also an article that the millennials just realized that they can get free TV by putting an antenna on their roof. You know that? So hopefully that will also.
Those crazy millennials.
Wacky. They don't have to actually pay for it to see it on their phone. So, it is hard because you can't, and when I was pitching that show to Jenning, she was saying that, it wouldn't probably be as satisfying on ABC because you can't do all the things that you're probably talking about. It's more cable-y, it's darker. It's, so there's that. I think that, but yes, I would love to, it would be my dream. I just don't know what it is yet. I don't know what that thing is, but I feel that I'm working toward that thing.
Yeah. Well, it's always, if you start writing about your childhood, and that's why I always ask people what the first movie they saw was, because it's kind of amazing that these things that you are doing when you're 5, or movies that you see, or impressions, or like you said, I'm circling TV guide, and then it's like, oh, my life actually, there is a certain pattern to it. And I think so many of us that are misplaced or think that our lives are not going the way they think they are, if you write everything down, you kind of like, I've actually had a pretty good life.
I've had a good life, and there was a path to it. There was a real.
I took chances. I did this. I'm not like Albert Brooks, and that.
Yes, where you're just.
We're So, my only advice is if you go back to your child and you write about those things, that you'd be surprised. You'll probably find stories.
Yeah.
Like your mom. I mean, that already sounds like.
My mom, and also my British family now. My
that sounds like a scene in a movie when you go home and you're like, I'm playing the maid. Your father's like, Merrin, I want you to see a movie called Gone with the Wind. And
let's talk about maids.
Yeah, let's talk about why this Merrin. We actually talked about that. Last year on Trailblazing Women, we talked about, God, I'm blanking on her name, from Gone with the Wind, who won an.
Hattie McDaniel.
Yeah, Hattie McDaniel. But that she actually in downtown Los Angeles, she broke up a covenant. People didn't know that. So in addition to winning an Academy Award, she lived in a segregated neighborhood and broke the covenant in Los Angeles. So we were documenting all these things that, like, not only have actresses done all these things on screen, like we were saying that we felt like she'd been a little unfairly treated, in terms of that she did things also in her private life that were in her personal life that were really amazing, and that's why I'd say history. So that's my little lecture. But anyway, anything you're working on now aside from decorating cakes? And
I am recurring on You're the Worst this season on FXX. So it's a really funny, filthy comedy about these two narcissists in love. And I play a filthy publicist.
When you say filthy, like, you get to, like, you have a potty mouth?
Oh, yeah, just disgusting.
All of the above.
All manner of, yes. And she had, well, I don't want to give away the things, but yeah, she's delicious. She's a lot of fun to play because she's just just like a publicist. No, she's no, she's a real special gal. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
My
Savory.
I love playing publicists. They're
well, yeah, because they're very sharp and specific, and
you just get to say anything off the top of your head. Anyway,
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you, Merrin. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been delicious and fun.
We could go on and on and on.
I know.
And please come back.
Yes,
Thank
do.
you.
You can find Merrin on Twitter at RealMerrinD and on Instagram, RealMerrinDungey. Thank you, Merrin.
Thank you, guys.
You can also buy Illeana's book, I Blame
you
Dennis
can.
Hopper, on Amazon. It's in paperback. You should get it. And look at our website, Illeana'sPodcast.com, and check out our Facebook page. That is all I have.
Give someone a hug today.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. We all need it.
Oh, definitely. My God.
Always.
Now more than ever.
Absolutely.
As I always say, everyone's life is like a movie with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Today is the end of our show. But thanks so much for being here, and please come back anytime.
I will.
Have a
I'll
great
bring
day.
cake next time.
Oh
Yes.
my God! Bring your sister. You can argue.
Oh,
on
yeah. We'll come in and I'll bring cake.
Okay, perfect.
All right, love it.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network. The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.